Happy Valley, and welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. I'm your host, Richie O'Leary, and joined as always when we're talking Penn State football, Happy Valley Insider's very own Dylan Callahan-Crawley. Dylan, today was Big Ten Media Day number 2, which means Penn State was up. James Franklin talked to the media, and then he talked to the Big Ten Network crew. I guess my first question for you is, any big takeaways, really, from his press conference with the media?
My two biggest takeaways were one, Abdul Carter. He spoke on a little bit. He was asked about Abdul Carter's transition to defensive end after playing linebacker. He said Penn State's going to play him at both positions this upcoming season, kind of keep opposing offenses on their toes about where he's going to line up any given week. But Penn State's going to do both. He's open to doing both, and I think that's a smart play for both Penn State and Abdul Carter. If you look at it, Penn State, some of their recent defensive ends that went to the NFL, two that stand off the top of my head, Adafe Owe and then Adisa Isaac, both defensive ends at the collegiate level, but with the Baltimore Ravens, both are more so outside linebackers, which I think for Abdul Carter could be what he plays at the next level as well. Also, I think we're going to see this upcoming season with that. Well, Penn State originally had plans for when it came to Micah Parsons and what would have been the 2020 season, his last season at Penn State. Obviously, that didn't happen because of COVID. But as I've said before, this is Abdul Carter's kind of been Penn State's second chance when it comes to having a Micah Parsons type guy in the defense. So I'm really excited actually to see what he does on the field this season. He talked about Julian Fleming's development on and off the field, kind of said how he came in, kept his mouth shut early, led by example, or showed on the field through winter workouts that he was here to work and get better. And then as the spring has progressed, he's become more of a leader.
Mm-hmm.
The one quote that definitely is going around is that he said, we're one of the few programs in the country you can win 10 or 11 games and people are unhappy. I think a lot of people are going to take that as a dig to Penn State fans. I'm not sure he meant it as a dig because I think that's just, truthfully, the expectations, whether fair or not, of what Penn State fans expect this program to be, which is a program that is more or less should be contended to be a national championship contender every year. I don't think that's necessarily realistic for more than a handful of programs in the country, but I think it's definitely a quote that's been making the rounds over the last hour, and I'm sure it's going to be one of those quotes that the college football media is going to be talking about for the next few days as well. But overall, this was kind of a straightforward media day for James Franklin. So we'll see. The quotes that are coming out from the players, we do have our own Dub Jellison over at Big Ten Media Days in Indianapolis. Again, the latest scoop for us there, but for us back here on the East Coast, pretty straightforward media days so far.
Yeah, I know we will have those videos of the players, individual interviews up on the site shortly, but we do have the interviews of James Franklin with the media and also with the Big Ten Network crew, and that's kind of where we got most of the info from, whether it be the whiteout talk, going with that, and kind of blamed a little bit of TV networks for getting involved a little too much, and that's it's a big factor, and that's a big reason why it's Washington. It's a big reason why it's Washington probably at noon. Is it probably at noon? Yeah, probably at noon if I had to guess.
Washington?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a probably 3:30 kick.
Okay, 3:30 then. But he did say that the TV networks did play a factor, so that kind of sucks in that aspect. He was asked about divisions being no more, and he said in his 11 years at Penn State, they've always been saying it, and it's finally here. So that's always a nice thing. You can tell he's a little bit excited, the fact that you don't have to play Michigan and Ohio State every single year. But yeah, no, I mean, there wasn't really a whole lot of takeaways from this, but I thought overall James said some good stuff. Like you said, the 10-win season thing's a little bit interesting.
Yeah.
Because Penn State fans are definitely going to take it as a dig.
Oh,
But
and national media is going to grab a hold of that and run away with it, I think, as well.
Sorry, went on mute. But yeah, no, they're definitely going to take a hold of that. They're going to grab onto that. But again, I mean, when you're winning 10 wins a season, it's still good seasons at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So you can't be too upset as a Penn State fan because I'm sure if you look at, 75-80% of the Big Ten, if you told them they're going to get 4, 5, 10-win seasons over the next couple of years, they'd be like, oh, sign me up now. I don't even care where we end up.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at it, Penn State, out of the last 8 college football playoffs would have been in it 6 times. It was an expanded playoff. I mean, this is, I think we said before, but this is one of those things where Penn State has always been the school that's been most pointed as somebody who would benefit the most from an expanded playoff. And now the expanded playoff is here. James Franklin at Penn State can't miss this opportunity. Especially, he was asked about where the program is when compared to when he gave that great to elite speech, and I think a lot of people would agree that the program has been stagnant or maybe taken a small step back since that moment in time. But he did say, like, we need to play our best football in the biggest situations, and through the last few years, Penn State has not played their best football in the biggest situations. That was obviously not the case last year against Ohio State, Michigan, or Ole Miss, and that's what all the eyes are going to be on this upcoming season. You look at Penn State's schedule, and I think most of us out there would agree that through the first, at least 5 games this season, Penn State's going to be favored, probably by multiple touchdowns in each game. And then, I think they should be favored with USC, Wisconsin. The only team I don't think they should be favored against this year is Ohio State. This is a team that should win 11 games this year. If you're looking at this, on paper roster comparison, Penn State's the best team on paper, 11 out of 12 games this year. But if Penn State, goes out and lays an egg against Ohio State at home on November 2nd, a lot of fans are not going to be, necessarily happy with the 11-1 result because, if Penn State couldn't go out and beat Ohio State on November 2nd or give them a competitive game on November 2nd, why should Penn State fans be, optimistic about potentially hosting or potentially Penn State being in the college football playoffs come December? So, it's going to come down to, that USC, that Ohio State game this year. I think that really dictates how Penn State fans feel about this program and into potentially late in the season and into a potential college football playoff berth. And I think if they miss on a college football playoff berth, then I think a lot of us would believe that this season would probably fall under that missed opportunity umbrella.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. It's kind of essential almost that they have to make a playoff game this year. It's 12 teams. Now, I know you could take away one spot because that's a G5 spot. You could that's really it. Like, everything else is still up for grabs. I think the 4 or 5 4 conference champs, they all get a spot, I believe. And then after that, there's just so many open spots for the playoff. You need to make it if you're James Franklin and crew. I don't care. You can't make the excuse of, it's a first-year OC, it's a first-year DC, especially when you're raving about how your DC is pretty damn good at his job at the Big Ten Media Day. So it's like you have to make it. And I know they talked a little bit more about the offense. You mentioned Julian Fleming. He actually talked a little bit about Drew and his mobility and a lot about Coltonicki's offense and how they have a lot of movement pre-snap and all that. This should be a playoff team, right? Like, we're not even questioning it. Yeah,
I think this is absolutely a playoff team. You look at the Cleveland.com poll that was released earlier this week. 67% of the writers who were polled on that, I think the number was. So that's roughly 18 of 27 writers think this team is a playoff team this year. And I would have to agree with that. I think this is, at the end of the day, a playoff team at Penn State. And if they don't make the playoffs this year, definitely going to be a disappointing season for Penn State fans. And not only do I think this is a playoff team, I think this is a team that can go to the playoffs. And I don't know about win the whole thing, but I think this is a team that can definitely win a game or two this year.
Yeah,
in the playoffs, win a game in the playoffs.
Yeah, especially if you're home. Imagine a Beaver Stadium home, probably not a night game, right? There's no way.
Probably not a night game, but once you get into those December afternoons, it can get dark pretty quickly. So they start as a 12 o'clock kick, but by the time 3:30 rolls around, it's already kind of the daylight is slowly disappearing.
Yeah, SEC team coming up north in December. I can't imagine they'd be happy about that. But
and James talked about how they've talked about this spring, I guess, and when they've been able to meet, just of putting themselves in an advantageous position, whether it comes to hosting a playoff game or having a first round bye in the playoffs, because that's the expectation, obviously. So yeah, if they get there, that's going to be interesting to see how that all works out. Because yeah, if an SEC team has to come up to Happy Valley, or if an SEC team has to go to any Big Ten school in December, that is an incredible home field advantage for the Big Ten program.
That's really all we have for Penn State and media days. Do you have anything else on media days before we move on to a different topic?
No, not on media days. Obviously, Penn State's going to have their own media day. Hopefully, I would say early
weeks, right?
next. It's usually the first 2 weeks of August, I think.
Okay.
For me, I hope it's the first 2 weeks of August, as I am. Me and my wife are expecting somewhere in that. Due date is August 20th, so anytime I guess in the next 3 weeks. So hopefully everything in my life works out so I can attend those media days next month. But we'll get the chance to talk to James, Andy, Tom, and then the rest of the coaching staff in August for more to learn more about the team going into the season. And then over on this side, we're obviously going to continue to preview this team. We're going to start on our opponent previews here in the upcoming days, and then we're going to start on our positional previews shortly after that. So, going to have plenty of preseason coverage over the next month here at Happy Valley Insider.
Yeah, going to have a lot of podcast guests as well. I know I'm already talking to the West Virginia one, so we'll have that up probably like a week or two before the game. But besides the point, I did want to say one more thing about Media Day. Well, two more things. Number one, Oregon, the duck thing, putting a giant inflatable duck in the middle of the Indianapolis River, pretty cool, I'm not going to lie.
Would you rather fight one duck that size, or would you rather fight 100 small ducks? Is the question key to my mind after that.
I'm going one duck. I'm going to go one duck. Yeah, you have to go one duck. You can't, 100 ducks, man. Like, you ever go to the park and you used to feed them as a kid and two of them would come after you?
I mean...
Then, imagine 100 of them coming after you at once. Like, no.
Yeah,
you're going after
they're
one
small.
big duck.
100 small ducks nipping at your legs. I mean,
I feel like I've played enough Super Mario Bros. To have that one big opponent, and it's all right, Bowser's it's not a duck, obviously, but same size as that big duck. I could feel a little confident. I don't think he can move. I think he'd be slow like a Bowser or something. But
that's the question that came to my mind when I saw that picture. It was...
Going way off topic there, but the other thing is, I didn't think you could lose a media day. And then Deshaun Foster did what he did.
Yeah.
Just straight up froze, didn't know what to say. Yep, UCLA, and we're next to USC, and I'm excited. And I'm like, what the hell, man? Jesus, that was bad. So you got to be thankful a little bit that James Franklin knows how to talk to the media and knows how to kind of just spin things his way. You can ask him a question. If he doesn't want to answer it, he'll spin it around for a paragraph about how his life is all about football or something.
Yeah, somebody, I forget if it was on Twitter or Facebook, and I saw it. And it's not supposed to be, a diss. I'm not making a diss at Franklin. But
not Franklin.
But James does a good job at giving non-answers sometimes and making it sound like an answer.
Yep.
He'll be asked a question, and then he'll go on a 5-minute tangent about something that is only semi-related to the answer, and then you have to just draw your conclusions from those sentences. But definitely a better performance than what Deshaun Foster gave today.
Yes, that was
not
bad.
Not a great look for Deshaun Foster for when it comes to a program that's already expected to be near the bottom of the Big Ten this year.
Yeah. So the other thing I want to talk about today, Tuesday, commissioners of the conferences finalized roster limits that should be filed by Friday in the House settlement. According to Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports, our parent company, football is going to go from 85 to 105 scholarships and no more walk-ons. Now, it used to be 105 total roster spots with 85 ships and 20 walk-ons. Now it's just straight up 105 scholarships. My question to you is, does this hurt or help Penn State? Or neither?
I don't think it helps or hurts Penn State. I think it's unfortunate, I think, to a degree, when it comes to walk-ons. I feel bad because there's, I think, a lot of walk-ons out there who probably aren't FBS level kids. Obviously, if you're a walk-on, you probably aren't. unless you decided to walk on a power program when you had G5 offers. But I feel bad for those kids who got the opportunity to walk on a higher program uh, after earning it. There's plenty of those kids on Penn State's roster. And I mean, you look at a guy like Dominic DeLuca, was a walk on for Penn State, now is a key linebacker for them. Penn State has had a strong history of walk ons, especially, following everything that happened in the past decade. Right after that happened, and scholarship limits were cut for a little bit for Penn State, they had a lot of strong walk ons that made a difference. I guess my ultimate question is, like, does a guy like a Dom DeLuca
Just get a
does
scholarship.
he not get the does he not get the opportunity to walk on at Penn State in the first place?
It's
Yeah.
it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be very weird.
It's unfortunate for those guys. I think for Penn State, it doesn't help nor hurt, because I think Penn State's going to recruit at a high enough level that they're going to be able to fulfill those spots without any issue, and field a strong team. But yeah, at the end of the day, and those walk-ons. I mean, those walk-ons are often, the kind of the heart of a football program. They keep everybody almost kind of in line. They're very much key to the developmental side of things as well, and it's very. I wonder how it's going to change the culture and landscape of college football. For Penn State itself, I don't think it's going to hurt or help. I think the rich are going to get richer. The poor are going to be okay, but I think the biggest loser in here is those guys who would have gotten those walk-on opportunities and will no longer get those walk-on opportunities now.
Yeah, I don't disagree one bit. Going to 105 in football, it's going to be more transfer portal, in my opinion, than anything else. Because now I can go in the portal and I can just go hit up like another 10 to 15 kids, or 20 kids if I really wanted to. I think it's going to be less and less high school and just more and more portal, and that's just yeah, go on.
No, and just a keynote from Ross Dellinger here on Yahoo, which is, let me see here. All sports will now be considered equivalency sports, meaning partial scholarships can be distributed to players. Football, basketball, and other sports are currently considered head count sports, which requires players on scholarship to receive full grant. So, I mean, that does change a little bit there, but still, yeah. So that does change a little bit, but doesn't change a ton. But worth noting.
Interestingly enough, I know Penn State notoriously has a pretty good volleyball team. Now you get 18 total scholarships for volleyball, so that could help them a ton.
Yeah.
Baseball and softball too. Baseball goes to 34, softball goes to 25. Like these are big numbers for those. Are big jumps for those.
I think walk-on, the guys who are walk-ons are still going to receive opportunities. It's just not going to necessarily be at those schools that they are currently at. Like a Dom DeLuca. Dom was a pretty damn good football player coming out of high school before he tore his ACL. And that's why he pretty much ended up at Penn State. But I think, like a team like Penn State, if you're Penn State, you have 105 guys, all now on scholarship. Do you choose to use those extra 20 or so spots for, guys who are more developmental, like a traditional walk-on, or are you using those guys, or not that I would call those roster spots a waste, but when you're limited to 105, and this is the new hard count, I guess what is going to be the philosophy and how those additional spots are going to be used? Is it going to be you can't waste any roster spot? Again, I don't think walk-ons are a waste of a roster spot, but will they automatically go for a kid they think absolutely can play the D1 level, or will they go for more of the kids that are your traditional walk-ons? That's where I think it's going to be an interesting question, perhaps to ask James at Penn State's media days next month.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting. Big weekend for Penn State on the recruiting trail. It's going to be the last weekend ever, actually, on the recruiting trail in July, since next year it will be a dead period. But Lasch Bash weekend, which means a ton of underclassmen are going to be on campus this weekend. So let's just break it down one by one. We know most of the commits from the 2025 class are going to be on campus, but there is one significant uncommitted guy from that class that's going to be here this Saturday. And Kobe Howard, 4-star wide receiver from Florida. What's the latest you're hearing on him?
Yeah, this is I think one that if Penn State is comfortable with what they see with Howard this weekend, this is a recruitment here that things can move fast for Penn State. Obviously, they missed on a couple key wide receivers earlier this month, and Lex Cyrus and Taz Williams committed to South Carolina and Baylor, respectively. They currently have two wide receiver commits in Jeff Exiner and Lyric Samuel, and they're looking to add at least one more. And like I said, if everything goes well with Howard's visit this weekend, I think there's a chance he's potentially camping on Sunday when they hold their last camp of the summer. That things could move fast, and Howard could become part of this class. I know our regional national recruit analyst, John Garcia,
Wrong quarterback.
put in his future cast for Howard to land with Penn State. John is very reliable, especially in Florida, so that is definitely something to watch out for there. It tells you, I think, how Elias Garcia feels about Howard's feelings on Penn State. I think it's just a matter of if Penn State feels the same after this weekend.
Yeah, so like you said, the future cast got put in. Now, I know previously, and not previously, I should say yesterday, posted the scoop, talked to a couple sources about Kobe Howard. His original plan was to, or I shouldn't say not his original plan, his plan as of yesterday is to still decide on August 24th. His team will have their home opener on ESPN national televised game against St. John Bosco, who's one of the best high school programs year in and year out. Now, the plan was to do that on ESPN. They did this last year. I forget who the prospect was, but they did it at halftime with someone, and he committed at halftime. Did the whole shabazz. Here's a hat, blah, blah, blah. So that is the plan as of right now. However, if Penn State pushes this weekend, I think they can just get it done, like you said, on Sunday. Now, this is a top 145 kid, top 150 kid in the country. Like, it's a pretty damn good recruit. Went to Rivals 5-star, showed out a little bit in front of all the analysts, not just John, but in front of our entire analyst team. So definitely something to keep an eye on this weekend. But other than that, there's going to have a bunch of underclassmen. I was trying to say before, they have a lot of different kids from just about all over the country. But I would say that the two most notable names are probably Messiah Mickens and Troy Hun, the two Penn State commits already.
Yeah, I think those two are up there, but I don't think you can leave out Kevin Brown. Brown, the Harrisburg offensive lineman, teammate of Messiah Mickens. I think it's safe to say that Brown, in my opinion, is the top of the board prospect for Penn State. Over the next few weeks, myself, you, Marty, and a few others are actually we're putting something exciting together as we prepare really more to focus on the 2026 recruiting class here on the site. Now at the 2025 class winding down, and Brown, and we're gonna have more or less a ranking of what we believe Penn State's big board is for the 2026 class. And at the top of that list, I can tell you all right now that number one will be Kevin Brown. I mean, this is a borderline 5-star prospect in the backyard for Penn State. I think regionally he's the best offensive lineman, even above Emmanuel Ian.
That's a good guess on that one. I don't know how to pronounce that one.
I think Emmanuel's a very good prospect. He's going to be top 3, top 4 on those in that too. But I think Kevin Brown has potentially an even higher ceiling, and I think in the backyard for Penn State, this is a probably a must get for Penn State. They don't absolutely like if they miss on him, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but a position that you always love to rack up the big high end talent on at offensive tackle, and he's just has an incredible ceiling. Still, I think a pretty raw prospect too. So Kevin Brown is a big one. Like you said, Troy Hahn, Messiah Mickens both committed, and there's a few others here that are definitely worth noting going forward. But those three are definitely at the top.
Yeah, for sure. Now, some of these other names I'm looking through, there's a big list of wide receivers. One of them I got to talk to recently, and that's Dysere Carter out of Virginia. Top 150 kid in his class. I think he's actually 158 or something like that, so whatever. Top 160 kid. He's coming up to campus. He told me that he has two schools on top, and it's Rutgers and Penn State, which is an interesting grouping for a kid from Virginia. But sounds like they've made some real good leeway with his recruitment.
Yeah, they absolutely have. I think put themselves in a um, solid spot in this recruitment thus far. All the early intel, I think, has been quite positive in terms of Penn State being in a favorable position. Still a long ways to go, but I mean, it they've been in similar spots before, and it hasn't worked out for them. But the earlier you can get in these recruitments and put yourselves in a strong spot to be in play later in the recruitment, obviously, is better. And Penn State, more than less, I think, does eventually close on those types of recruitments. Definitely a positive development for Penn State early on.
Yeah, for sure. Looking throughout these other names, is there anyone that really stands out to you other than, like, maybe not a highly ranked kid like a Kevin Brown or like a Messiah Mickens, but is there any other lower level names that we should keep an eye on?
Not necessarily a low name. I think wide receiver Connor Salmon out of Virginia is really intriguing. Has a really good offer sheet. Jazir Rogers out of Delaware is an intriguing prospect. We'll see if his recruitment continues to, point up. J.C. Anderson is one of the top tight ends in the country. He'll be on campus this weekend. White Deke Collier out of Newman Goretti, another in-state prospect worth watching.
Yeah, forgot about him.
And then, you look at 2027, two really high-level offensive linemen in Maxwell Hiller and Layden Von Brandt. Both are going to be on campus, as well as Brandon Loxley Jr. and Senior Brooks out of St. Joe's Prep and Pittsburgh Central Catholic, respectively. So, I mean, it's a really strong strong visitors list this weekend for Penn State. And that doesn't include guys like, Daniel Jennings, Tariq Boney, and a few other guys of that caliber.
So let me ask you this. Other than Kobe Howard, is there any chance for a commitment from probably, it wouldn't be a 2025 kid if I'm not counting Kobe, so 2026?
I don't see any coming this weekend. Could be surprised. I know Kevin Brown isn't anywhere close to a commitment, in my opinion, based off what our intel suggests. So I don't see one imminent now.
Okay, awesome. So Lasch Bash technically starts Friday, where they'll have some of the younger kids on campus. They'll have kind of a mixture of just kids every day, I guess. Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday, like you said, there's a camp too. But other than that, that's really it. This is more of a shorter podcast because it's not a crazy big list. It's a relatively smaller list. Like we said, 2025, it's mostly just Kobe Howard coming up. I'm trying to think. I'm looking at these names right now. There's not really anyone else. I like Ash Roberts. I've had a chance to see him a couple times out of Roman Catholic, the wide receiver.
Yeah.
Technically holds a Penn State offer, but he's a little on the shorter side, so I don't know where he would probably stand on that board.
Very quality prospect, though. Very quality. And I mean, I'm looking at this list. There's not. I think 95% of this list, if not, like almost everybody on this list is going to end up playing major college football.
Yeah.
There is no way, guys on this list who are borderline FBS talent. They're all FBS talent, and at the very least, high FCS talent, in my opinion. And a lot of these guys are going to go on to play Power 4 football as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's crazy to say Power 4 football. But
I almost say Power 5 every time.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough adjustment, but that is the new world of college football right now. 18 in the Big Ten right now. But yeah, if you haven't already, check out. Actually, hold on. Any other final thoughts before I do the sign off?
Yeah, no final thoughts on this one. We just doing this one back to back with our last podcast, actually. So I think I said pretty much all I need to say on that pod. So just stay tuned. At Happy Valley Insider, we'll be we'll have wall to wall coverage of this weekend, obviously, and then preseason is right around the corner now that media days are complete for the Big Ten.
Yeah. If you haven't checked out that podcast, just a quick recap of what happened so far at Big Ten Media Days. This is a preview, obviously, of the Lasch Bash weekend and a potential commitment down the line in Kobe Howard, maybe. But for me and Dylan, that's another episode of the Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.